Warrenton, it's on the Oregon coast, but do you know where? Seems like not a lot of people do. It's a little bit off of the radar. In this video, we'll talk a little bit about why that is and some pros and cons of Warrenton, Oregon. All that starts now. Hey everyone, Seth Marchant with the Home Team Brokers here. Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new to this channel, living on the Oregon coast, we show you what it's like to eat, sleep, play, work, all the pros and cons of living on the Oregon coast. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure and hit the subscribe button, tap the bell, that way you'll be notified every week when we drop a new video. And if you're somebody that's thinking about moving to the Oregon coast or really anywhere else in Oregon, as licensed brokers in the state of Oregon, as much as we like making these videos, we'd love to help you move here. If you're one of those people, you can call, text, email, or you can even click the link below in the description if you want to schedule a Zoom call with us. No matter how you get in touch with us, we've got your back when it comes to moving to the Oregon coast. All right, let's talk about Warrenton. Warrenton is on the northwestern part of the Oregon coast, right there next to Astoria. Sometimes gets hyphenated with Astoria. Sometimes you'll see things like events where it's Warrenton / Astoria. So kind of get grouped together right there next to Astoria. A lot of people think that sometimes you hear people say like the Astoria is like the most northwestern point on the Oregon coast, kind of overlooking a little, like I said, kind of flying under the radar, Warrenton. Now there's about 5,500, maybe 6,000 people in Warrenton. You also have a couple little unincorporated communities, Fort Stevens and Hammond. You include those, you got another 1,000 people or so, maybe a little bit more. So there's quite a few people that actually live in this area, yet you really don't hear too much about Warrenton. Quite frankly, we don't get too many people like you reaching out to us asking about Warrenton. That's another reason why I say it seems like it's a little bit under the radar. And maybe some reasons why that is. Well, a lot of towns along the Oregon coast are either right smack in the middle of the 101, which goes all the way from southern to the northern Oregon coast, or the 101 will kind of go right next to a town, at least for most towns, enough to kind of give you a feel for the town. There's a handful of towns that are going to be off the 101 that you won't see unless you actually take an exit to go see. And Warrenton is one of those towns. So for that reason, they don't get a whole lot of through traffic. And there's not a ton of destination things, not a ton of touristy things in Warrenton. Probably one of the biggest draws for tourists or people that don't live in the area in Warrenton is going to be Fort Stevens State Park. It's a massive state park. That's where the shipwreck of Peter Iredale is. It's almost a 4,000 acre state park with RV camping, bike trails, ponds, lakes, and part of the old base is still there, batteries as they call them. So these old cement forts that usually when I've gone there, there's usually not a whole lot of people there. A little bit creepy too. I'm sure there's some stories about them being haunted. But the entire park itself is massive and it's awesome. And a lot of people go there to camp. The downtown itself, and this might fall under the cons list if we're doing some pros and cons of Warrenton. The downtown itself of Warrenton is kind of what you might think of as one of those one stoplight types of towns. In other words, it's tiny. There's not much there. I don't even think they have one stoplight. It's just a couple of stop signs, and then you're going to get to that intersection that's right by the 101, just past the Voltanos. They do have a Voltanos pizza. Got a handful of restaurants down there. Voltanos is a kind of a more popular chain, if you're not familiar with it, along the Oregon coast, or at least along the northern Oregon coast. So the downtown is very small. There's not a whole lot there. There's not anything that's drawing people there like other neighboring towns such as Astoria or Seaside or Cannon Beach. So for that reason, I think Warrenton just doesn't draw a ton of people in and doesn't consequently get talked about very much. You know, people that are typically traveling to the northern Oregon coast are coming from Portland, and they're usually going to places like Astoria or Seaside. You don't hear too many people that are planning specifically to go to Warrenton, unless it's maybe to, like I said, Fort Stevens State Park to camp. Now, although Warrenton is right next to Astoria, the real estate and the housing is going to be quite a bit different than Astoria. One thing that jumps out to me about Warrenton, you'll really notice this if you look at Warrenton on a map, there's a ton of water there. There's a ton of ponds, lakes, streams, rivers. The town itself and the city borders technically are going to be on the ocean side as well as the river side, the Columbia River. Again, you're wedged right there in that northwestern corner of Oregon, where the Columbia separates the state of Washington. Much of what was early developed here was in Astoria, so you've got a lot of homes that were built in Astoria well over 100 years ago in the early 1900s. You didn't have as much building going on in Warrenton around that time. So a lot of homes in Warrenton are going to be newer or new. There is a fair amount of new construction there. Not too many big new subdivisions where you have a bunch of tract homes that are the same, but just a lot of individual lots, especially if you're looking for a lot that's maybe a little bit bigger, like a quarter acre or a half acre. You find a lot of that in Warrenton. So one big difference, I think, with the housing, and this could be a little bit of a pro in Warrenton, is that you're going to typically find newer, larger homes, and your cost per square foot, or your average cost of the homes in Warrenton, are right about in line actually with Astoria. Astoria, you're going to pay a little bit more for that proximity, and there's going to be a lot of homes in Astoria that are very walkable to things, restaurants, or at least a drive is just going to be a minute or two. If you're living in Warrenton, you're probably going to, like I said, the downtown is so small, you're probably going to find yourself traveling outside for shopping and restaurants, and Astoria is like 8 minutes away. Seaside and Gearhart, just to the south of you, 10 minutes away. So you don't have the same proximity as like an Astoria to shopping and restaurants, and that's part of what you're paying for when you buy a home and you get real estate in Astoria, is you're going to have great proximity. But in Warrenton, your dollar might go a little bit farther as far as getting you maybe a little bit more square footage or getting you a newer home. So if you want something that's maybe a little bit more secluded, a little bit more off the beaten path, and you don't necessarily need to be walkable to everything, and maybe you're considering Astoria, Warrenton might be a good choice for you. Now, aside from the restaurants and your smaller shops and stuff like that, some of the best shopping is actually right in between Warrenton and Astoria, in that you have a Costco, you have a Walmart, you have a Fred Meyer, a Home Depot, Big Five Sporting Goods, a Joann Fabrics for all you knitters, and then a handful of other stores over a couple of different strip malls. So one big pro of Warrenton is that you have some of the best shopping, really probably the best shopping along the Oregon coast. And I think one big pro of Warrenton is that you have a great beach right along the coast. You do have a little bit of beach as well along the Columbia River, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. And that beach along the Oregon coast, right there on that northern section, can sometimes get a little bit more congested, but I do think that stretch of beach is some of the nicest beach along the Oregon coast. So between the river and the coast, and all the lakes and ponds and streams and rivers in between, there's a lot of places for people to go play. There's a boat ramp too, of course. You have a marina that's right next to downtown Warrenton. So maybe for the outdoorsy person, if you're into fishing, Warrenton also might be at the very top of your list of places to live. There are also a fair amount of lots that are typically coming to market in Warrenton. So if you're looking to build, and again, especially if you want something that's maybe a little bit of a bigger lot, Warrenton might be a good choice for you. So all in all, I think Warrenton is sort of a quiet, flying under the radar community, even though it's not very small. There's a lot of towns along the Oregon coast that are 500 people, 1,000 people. Again, Warrenton, when you combine Fort Stevens and Hammond, looking at like 7,000-8,000 people. So a lot of people living there, but it feels small if you know, with the downtown, but there's still a lot of people there. I was at a parade downtown actually for the 4th of July there recently. It was packed. There's tons of people there. So there's a lot of people living there. It feels still small though. It doesn't feel congested because it just doesn't get any traffic from tourists. So that's the kind of feel, like the vibe that you get with Warrenton. So I think it's a good place for somebody looking for something on the northern Oregon coast that maybe wants something a little bit more secluded, that's a little bit more off the beaten path, that doesn't necessarily need something that's walkable. You don't mind driving 5, 10, 15 minutes to shopping and to restaurants. And you get some great beaches nearby, lots of things to do. And so for those reasons, I think for somebody looking for those types of things, Warrenton is a great fit for somebody. Again, we don't get asked about Warrenton too often. I think it just because, like I said, it flies really under the radar. If you're thinking about looking somewhere along the northern Oregon coast, if you'd like to know more about Warrenton or any of the surrounding areas, you can call call us, text us, email us, or like I've mentioned, you can schedule a Zoom with us by clicking the link below in the description. And if this video helped you, give us a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos about what it's like to live on the Oregon coast, hit the subscribe button, tap the bell. I hope you guys have a great day. Take care, everyone.